It's Dan and Christie on air and online 24/7 on the Listener app and introducing the enigmatic, unconventional musical phenomenon known as TISM. Have a listen to that. This is Serious Mum, a force to be reckoned with, defying convention. Monofoma.net.au for dates and details of the tour. But Ron and Humphrey from the band join us. Good morning, boys.
I'm so glad that we're on your show because we've decided to make an announcement exclusive to Hit FM.
Oh, yeah?
And that is TISM has been sold to a Saudi Arabian prince. And the reason that we've joined the Saudi Arabians in their quest to modernise their country and their economy is they've decided what they need is a 1970s style Australian pub rock scene in Saudi Arabia, and we're our representatives in Australia. And the call out through Hit FM is on all 1970s pub rock Australian bands who want to help the Saudi Arabians modernise. Contact us. The money's to tidy sum, Dan.
Well, absolutely. We will sell it to our Middle Eastern colleagues over there.
They're listening to us right now, boys.
They do listen every
always
morning
listen.
on the Listener app.
They actually find that the attitude to women in 1970s Australian pubs is very like the attitude in Saudi Arabia. You know, I think there's a lot of synergies there. I don't know if that's what you'd agree with me, Humphrey.
Yeah, I think so. I recall an incident at the Sandown Park Hotel when a woman was hit over the head with a beer jug. And I think that's probably what they're aiming for, that kind of early to mid-70s violence. And we all, you know, we respect our owners, as I'm sure you do there at Hit FM, Dan. You respect the right of the Saudi law to bring back an era where the privileged elite were in charge. You know, we're all sick and tired of the suffering and oppressed being in charge. It's time for paunchy, impotent, middle-aged white blokes to have their say.
That's right, because for too long we've been oppressed. Dan, look, the other big announcement we're making is there will be pill testing at all TISM Live gigs. Pill testing to make sure our audience is safe. It's the pill testing directed towards our audience, so you'll be able to bring your cholesterol pills, your arthritic pills, and estrogen. You can do a lot of testing for estrogen at TISM gigs just to make sure that those medications are safe for you to ingest whilst you're watching us on stage.
Yeah, you see, if they'd only tested for pills at Prince's apartment, we could still have a musical genius with us. But, you know, sadly, those incontinence pills got him in the end.
I think incontinence pills, Humphrey, I find when I take incontinence pills, I'm not sure they're always working. I'm not sure, you know, I've gone down, the guy at the bar has insisted to me that the pack of incontinence pills will stop the dribble. And sometimes I take them and the dribble, I mean, sometimes my underwear is evidence. I've taken my underwear back to the front bar and said to the guy, stop watching the Greyhounds. Here's my underwear. It's sopping wet. You sold me $50 worth of incontinence pills and I'm not... But mind you, though, I felt really great. I felt great, a lot of energy. So I'm not sure what's in those pills.
And, you know, I think that's a subject that's covered a lot in a lot of the music that you're playing on Hit FM, Dan. You know,
just Dan, I'm not here. Just you, Dan.
There's Christie too, guys.
No, I mean, look, we're a bit embarrassed because we don't know who you're with there, Dan. We can't see. We can only see your face.
Oh, you can only see my face. Christie Hayes here used to be on Home and Away for a good decade.
No, they don't have that in Saudi Arabia, remember? Like, how would they know?
Yes, I felt that the satire was on us there because of our sexist nature. We can only... Sorry, Dan, who are you with?
I don't let a woman talk, just like the Saudis. Christie Hayes, superstar.
Okay.
Do a quick Google.
Don't do a
Humphrey
Google.
and Ron, do it. But yeah, like you said, there will be drug testing and maybe we'll pop a few Rennies or maybe shelve them in the front row at Monofoma. After 18 years, both of you have not been on stage for a very long time. What made you choose Tasmania?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously there's a huge connection with art that Tasmania has and through Mona, and we want to end all art, so that's why we're here. It's about time that someone put their foot down and stopped art for good. So really, that's, because we see Tasmania as very much the kind of the breeding ground of this sort of artist character.
That's right.
And we want to stomp that out.
And Christie, you've been on Home and Away, and so you know something about stopping art. You've been part of it yourself.
Yeah, it did stop when she left the show.
Flavor and Hal, hang on. How would Ray Marr feel about you not calling Home and Away just a work of art? It's like regular Shakespeare, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I sort of think that Home and Away is more like your Pinter play.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, there's that sort of hint of menace, I find, in Home and Away, that kind of unexplained tension the whole time.
I feel Christie's character, there was that buried violence underneath her every word. Like she would come in and say, "I'm home, babe, let's go surfing." But there was that Lady Macbeth-like menace. Like when Lady Macbeth said, I shame to wear a heart so white. That's what Christie brought to the part, I think, in Home and Away. I think since she unfortunately left the show, it's like that a little bit.
Yeah. I also
the show's
think
baried now without me, isn't it?
Stopped writing the scripts. That was another, that was kind of another thumbs down for Home and Away. But there's always the future. I think Christie should consider getting back into it. Radio is dead, as we all know. And, I'd rather you be a household name in Saudi Arabia when we bring 70 rock.
Yeah.
Home and Away could be playing on the video screens as we launch our project.
Yeah.
Christie, have you ever met Erica Betts?
He's on the street corners at the moment, just begging for his job back.
Well, the reason I ask is, like a lot of Australian rock musicians, Eric's a very, very caring and kindly man. Look, honestly and seriously, not too many people know as much about erectile dysfunction as Eric. And when an Australian rocker...
Yeah, you're talking my language. I popped a blue pill before this interview.
Eric's got a strange syndrome where he can only manage to get and maintain an erection when there's a Labor government. So he's torn between his political attitudes and his desire, as every man has, for gratification. And I'm just wondering if he shares that with women as well. Because, for the first half of this interview, Christie, we acted as if you didn't exist, which we're shamed by. We're shamed.
No, well, that's what they taught you to do in Saudi Arabia, right?
We are never going to be broadcast into Saudi Arabia if we're going this way. We'd be paid a lot more if we did. But you guys are being quite philosophical because I want to talk about one of your songs, Greg the Stop Sign. So this one, I think it's one of the great songs of all time by TISM. Just saying everything's terrible, but, keep on punching.
You fundamentally misunderstood that, I'm afraid, Dan.
What is it about?
I'm very much. Well, what's it about is the Middle East has an sometimes unforgiving culture, but a culture that's not understood well in Australia. And Greg the Stop Sign was an attempt, as Grand Prince Sir Rafiq Ken Kafori Jabbar has told us to say, Greg the Stop Sign is an attempt to reconcile individualistic Western values with the more traditional religious wasabi religion that exists in Saudi Arabia. I think that's obvious, Dan. I think that's obvious. I can't understand your misinterpretation of the song.
It was also not written by anyone in TISM, which is very important. I think that there's also a Cubist element to that track. So. The central pillar of characters like your Braque and your Picasso and your Leger was to stomp out perspective. To ban all perspective. And when Greg the Stop Sign was written by the team of songwriters behind Taylor Swift, the idea was that, as Nigel Tufnell says in Spinal Tap, there's too much fucking perspective. And so Greg the Stop Sign is a song about too much fucking perspective, or not.
Dan and Christie, you're part of a very important and popular Breakfast FM team. What the hell are you doing wasting your time with us? I mean, it's unbroadcastable. It's mainly nonsense.
Because I'm a fan.
We apologise now. That's all we can do is apologise for this.
What are you talking about? You're one of the most interesting chats we've had all day, and we spoke to the friggin' Prime Minister yesterday.
You're on FM radio, so it's a pretty low bar, I'm afraid.
Well, this is the thing about TISM. I've been a fan for the last 20 years. You have been on hiatus for about that long, but you are writing new music. I know your latest single, The C Word, was #1 on the independent charts, and Kylie Minogue was actually second place.
50 sales.
Yeah, 50 sales.
#1 on the independent charts. Is there a more pathetic sentence? God almighty. That's like saying you're #1 on Radio National. No one cares. All right?
But you're beating
No
Kylie
one cares.
Minogue.
Yeah, you
like,
beat
padam,
Kylie.
padam. What's it like being on top of Kylie Minogue after she's dropped to #2?
Yeah, on time.
Well, I guess, you can take some pride in kicking a goal in the Veterans League sometimes.
The Masters League.
Yeah, us and Kylie, we're battling away. Our beer guts are hanging over our footy shorts. But one for us over Kylie. But Kylie's going to come up from behind with the wedding ring on and King hit us pretty soon, I think.
That's right.
The scars will remain. That's what good Tasmanian footy ought to be about.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get rid of that sort of thing. But, play on a gravel oval and get thumped by someone wearing their wedding ring. Well, actually, not the wedding ring. That doesn't leave marks. It's more your engagement ring, which has got a nice stone on it. That really keeps you in hospital a couple of extra days.
Nice big rock.
Our shows these days too, Dan, the reason we're reformed and playing live is our shows mainly involve financial advice, superannuation, how to best pay for private school fees, home extensions. They're our interests now, Dan.
Okay.
We're no longer interested in skewering the pomposity of Australian rock music and art in general. We're interested in being able to pay off the mortgage and have a nice trip on long service leave. That's what we're about, Dan. And that's, I assume, why you're doing breakfast radio as well.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of another reason.
No, there's no reason. It's just all about mortgage-backed securities and tax time.
And to talk to TISM, of course, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, basically. And I can't wait for you to turn up to Mofo. And we got some questions from TISM fans. So this is Investigate TISM.
Okay.
So we do have some questions here from your fans. First question is from Jeff Rossiter. Are TISM actually a musical side project of the least talented members of Human Nature and the Mavises? Discuss.
Well, that's a confronting question.
It is, especially from Jeff, who is actually in the band. He's the bass player. So it's mainly him dragging us down. I've always hated Jeff Humphrey, and it's about time we've outed that guy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got that question. He can't write. So how did you get that question? It must have been a phone-in thing. Is that right, Dan and Christie?
He's actually my cousin. Everyone's cousins here in Tasmania. Anyway.
Tasmania, everyone is.
Another question here.
Kelly from Bendigo asks that TISM's almost 20-year hiatus between 2004 and 2022 was actually TISM's greatest artistic achievement. Is that like a statement or a question?
Yeah.
So did you do your
More
best
of a
work when you
statement.
weren't working?
Yeah, one more time around the perimeter. It's always ill-advised, isn't it, Christie? And
I'm always a fan of round two.
There's lots of great sequels, aren't there? I think, when the Village People went new romantic in the early 80s, everyone remembers them for the Renaissance album, don't they? And that's really what TISM's comeback, so-called comeback, is like. It's like those bad album covers that people send around on Facebook. That's kind of the level we're playing at. So, yeah, Kelly has got us in one there. I think that comes from living in a town that has such a beautiful art gallery and then so much kind of hidden violence in the actual streets and, ketamine abuse.
That is the key to our reformation, is the ketamine. There's no pill testing for ketamine. I've actually sawn off my left leg and was so disassociated from my body, it was a pleasant experience. Slightly more pleasant than coming to our shows and watching us. Christy, if you went back to home and away, it wouldn't be the same, would it?
Well, I already did go back to it once. And no, you're right. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same at all. It's like when you're going to have your second orgasm, it's just never as good as the first, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's obviously separated by a couple of years in our case.
A written application, actually.
Yeah. We're talking to TISM, not
I
jism.
I find ketamine works beautiful in your whippersnipper. I use it rather than two-stroke. Two-stroke really is what happens when you're a 15-year-old in your bedroom. But ketamine works beautifully in the whippersnipper. And where are we?
And last but not least,
Yes, please, last, for God's sake.
a question from Jason Barber. He says, will TISM ever represent Australia in Eurovision?
Well, we've never had that question before, Ron. That's really got us. I guess only if there's a few changes to Eurovision.
Yeah, this is...
Yeah. I mean, if Eurovision becomes actually a conference of the head of the Commonwealth governments, I could see TISM fitting in that,
We could represent Germany in Eurovision and invade the Polish act when they're on stage. That'd be, and then the Russians could invade the Poles from the other side, and we could just split Poland in half. Then I think we'd have to go through the Denmark Act and take over the French Act. I think if we're the German Act. I mean, I'm not sure why people are down on the Germans. They've never hurt anybody, and that would probably be the name of the single. We Germans have never hurt anybody. It's actually writing itself, this stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine you playing all of this interview, Dan and Christie.
This is our whole show.
In the entirety, the last 20 minutes of this interview is all going to air as live.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, you guys are profound. You're perfection and profane too. It's TISM. And we can't wait to see you. Mona.net.au to see one of the greatest bands, an incredibly rare outing for us in Tasmania. So thank you for coming down. But Humphrey and Ron, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Dan and Christie.
Thank you, Dan and Christie.
Thank you, Christie. Good luck.
See you in Saudi Arabia.
See you in Saudi.